Well, creativity means multiple perspective, exploration of multiple perspective, and diversity. I think that that's very important to creativity. We know that when people are in touch with many diverse other people and other styles, they can become more creative. It's not always easy to be with people who are diverse from you, but creativity is nurtured by diversity. And of course, creativity is for me the combination of novelty and relevance and usefulness. That's a very important concept. You need to have both. I think that many times in our field, I mean, in this field of creativity for a long time, people mistake creativity for originality. And that creativity is not just originality. It needs to be the combination of these two key elements, something new, something original, and yet something that is useful, that is relevant, that has value.
Mm. Yeah, there seems to be general consensus in the academic world, at least, that creativity needs to include those two concepts. It has to be valuable in addition to being original or new. Or by valuable, we can say it's useful or it's appropriate or it's relevant. So yeah, there does seem to be general consensus about that. And this concept of diversity. Now, in the academic world, there seems, well, there is a tendency for people to become experts in a very isolated field without considering the broader context. And it's only recently that there's an emphasis on multidisciplinarity and, you know, getting people to collaborate with each other across the fields, across the boundaries. Now, there are disadvantages of that, because some people will say, well, you know, if we collaborate with people who don't know anything about our subject, it's kind of going over the old ground again, and it wastes a lot of time. So how do you deal with this issue of like, well, there is a potential of seeming to be wasting time because not everyone's on the same page?
Well, I believe that the contribution of everybody needs to be, well, that's part of what creativity is. So you continue building on your first question and trying to get into the second. That is one of the cornerstone of our creative process, which is creative problem solving, and any creative process when we embrace the divergent thinking. So we have these two key elements, divergent thinking and convergent thinking. Divergent is exploration, right? And divergence is, a convergence is going, zeroing in what is makes sense, in what is familiar, right? So, and what is useful, really, and relevant. So if I get these two concepts, I think that if I am a creative person or a creative scholar, right, I need to open up in the divergent thinking phase to explore all different inputs, right? And to open up, and that's never a waste of time, because actually from people who are outside of your own field, and that could be applied to business, right? We do this a lot with business people when we go and we facilitate sessions or for them or train them, is to just embrace perspectives that comes from the outside of your own field, because they can bring to you something that you might have not thought about. So if we accept this principle that with divergent thinking we can get a lot of different perspective and collaboration, then when you get to convergent thinking, which is really say, okay, what is important for me right now, for my study, for my field, for my business, what can I apply, what is really relevant here, then you can get both things. Getting perspective and contribution, and at the same time making the decision on what is relevant in your field or in your area of interest when you get into the convergence.
And from your experience of having organized the creativity conference that you organize in Italy over the last, what, 16, 17 years, have you noticed that, I mean, one of the reasons that people go to conferences is because we want to learn from each other. We want to learn from different ways of perceiving what we're working on ourselves. How do you how do you synthesize these, the diversity that is present? You know, you have hundreds of people attending your conferences, and they are all from diverse backgrounds and cultures. So
Yeah.
how do you harness that diversity to transform it into some sort of creativity?
Well, Korea Conference is actually like, is this hub of diversity. We have had like, up to 32 countries participating. So you can imagine how many people and how many different perspectives. I think that what we do at Korea is really creating the climate. And here is one other concept of creativity we have not yet talked about. So you asked me at the beginning, what is creativity for you? I gave you a definition. It is the field definition, the novelty and relevance and all of that, because I believe in that. And I think that it is important to look at creativity as the combination of four main factors. You can see person, people, right? Creative people, creative processes that we use, creative products, right, that needs to be innovative and useful, but most importantly, and that's what I believe more and more is important, creative environment. So what does it mean to have a creative environment? So climate is one of the most important elements of a creative environment. So we create a climate that nurtures dimensions that we know foster creativity and foster collaboration, right, in people. The reference we have on that is the work of Goran Ekvall, it's a Swedish organizational psychologist. And so he talks about these elements of these factors that foster creativity in the climate, like trust, right? And mutual support and openness, risk-taking, right? So we really push people a little bit to try something new and try something different. This kind of playfulness, for example, really equalize people. And even if you come from different areas, even if you don't know the person, you open up in a different way. This climate of challenge and involvement. We involve people in something that is a little bit challenging, right? And we give them support for their ideas. We give them time to explore. And so I think that this multicultural, diverse mix in this environment, they really foster this psychological climate of safety, curiosity, right? And exploration is the way we harness. And I think that when we usually do survey, right? Of course, to evaluate with our attendees, right? Their satisfaction about Korea Conference. And we collect verbatims. And one of the first one that just, go like, on the top of my mind is multicultural joy. And that is something that I think really harness creativity and the different perspectives.
Yes, I can imagine that, with so many different cultures from all over the world, there would be some sort of, divergent thinking that synthesizes itself into creativity. And from what you're saying, the place is very important. You call it climate, yeah. I call it place.
Yeah, sure.
It has to be right for creativity. And so the conference creates that space where the place is, as you say, supportive, and it nurtures the creativity. But when people leave that place and go back to their own countries, they go back to their own environments, how is that creativity supported? How is it maintained? How is it sustained?
That is an excellent question. I think it is the fundamental question, right? How do you carry this forward? We have all been to very different events, and I have done that. That's one of the main reasons I build these conferences, because I've been to others. Now, it's always not easy. I think we at Korea, what we try to do, we always have, like, towards the end, and even in our programs, because we have also 2-3 days training program in creative process, creative problem solving. We really try to have people grounding what I'm going to take home, and how I'm going to harness this, how I'm going to bring this to not only my work, but my family, right? My friends. That's also what creativity is for me, and what we try to bring in the culture of Crea to people, the whole person, right? You know, yes, a lot of people come to Crea interest. We have a lot of very interesting business, right, concept and content there that you can apply, or processes and tools that you can learn to apply to your work. But it's also important to see that your life is a whole life, right? So how do you bring this in? And so we do have specific sessions many times for people, or part of our programs that are dedicated for them to take it forward, make a plan, and like try to following up with people after that. We also believe in a body system, right? I do believe that in any learning environment, try to get in touch, and we put people in touch together so that you can continue to nurture and bring this forward. Of course, there is no magic recipe for that. Some people, of course, have the opportunities with colleagues to, or with their family to bring this forward and really leave this the days and months after Crea, and other people maybe get like, you know, swamped back in their daily life. But I have to say one thing, in our conference, we know, as one of my colleagues in the board says, there is a before and after Crea. and that's what I say, that people really, what I think that Crea does for me, compared to other experience, other conferences, is creating the experience, a very immersive experience, that when people go back home, they really feel they have really hit something different in their life. Now, it can hit everybody maybe, but many of them are impacted, and they bring that forward.
I suppose it's to do with that deep experience, not only at the cognitive level. It's at the cognitive level, we have ideas, we have insights, but we feel it's the energetic field, isn't it? Which
I think you hit the mark, and it's part of, like, you know, think mentally, when I think about creativity, again, Crea or any other experience that is highly creative, you really need to bring together the cognitive and the affective, right? The emotional side, you know, when you need to bring in the emotional and behavioral side, right, in people. And it's very different than what we just, you know, cognitively, right, rationalize, to say, well, I need to use this process, I learned this process, I need to be delivered in using this specific tool or way of thinking. That is a good thing. Yet, if you do not internalize and you don't emotionally feel it, the effectiveness is so much more limited. Absolutely.
And then broader than that, so in addition to the biological, the psychological, then we have to take into consideration the sociological. You know, that when people go back to their own countries, it's like, what are the channels of communication available to them to continue those relationships? Because it's through those strong, deep relationships, that true collaboration, and really kind of connecting the dots, as it were.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. And I think that at Crea, like in any other event, you know, all you can do is be a catalyst in a certain way, right? But at the end of the day, you really need to have the person connecting. And as I say, the word connection is critical, right? To move this forward in your life.
And so much more is available to us now compared with, let's say, in 1950, when Guilford made that complaint at the American Psychological Association about the lack of research into creativity. We didn't have all this technology available to us at that time. You know, hardly anybody had computers in their homes. We didn't have the internet. We didn't have all this technology available to us. So in a way, all the resources that are available to us now are enabling us to be creative in so many different ways than was possible, what, 50, 60 years ago, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. That's the power of the digital, the connection. What are we doing right now with your conference? For example, our the last CREA, the last session, which was like a night and evening session, was a collective, a plenary session. We collaborated with our colleague Marcy Siegel. She has established this World and Creativity and Innovation Day, and she has she has done everything online, like, you know, through the power of the internet, of Facebook and Twitter and LinkedIn. And then as a result, last April 21st, I think, or 22nd, we had recognized by the United Nations Creativity Day. So that was a great accomplishment. I am mentioning this to say that what we did at CREA to honor that Creativity Day, which was say, do we have a day, like there is Earth Day, right? There is now the United Nations Creativity Day, which means, of course, it's not just one day. It is one day, is a symbol. It's like saying you don't want to litter, you want to care for the environment 365 days a year, right? But we have a day. So the day of celebration of creativity, what we did was really getting all our people in group with tablets, with digital technology, in small groups, working on a few of the sustainable goals of the United Nations. And also, this is another thing that I strongly believe about, that we need more and more to tie creativity to social innovation. We need more and more to tie creativity to what matters to people in their community. And of course, we did that, involving people to say, okay, these are the big global sustainability goals of the United Nations. How do these apply in your own community? How does this apply in your life? How health and well-being, right, will be applying to your own life? How, like, gender equality would apply to your own life, or protection for the environment? So I really believe that that is really another critical element to bring it forward, getting engaged and use creativity and apply, get creativity. I'm so glad you're doing that, out of academia in a certain way, to connect really with the needs of the people, and to bring this more into our communities, because the world we live in right now has so many needs of creative thinking, don't you think?
Yes, yes, of course. And it's interesting how, you know, with industrialization, people are saying that we're now moving out of industrialization into the creative economy. Yeah. And it's going to depend on each one of us being able to not get skilled so that we can have a job, but acquire the skills so that we can create jobs.
Absolutely, absolutely. And jobs, as we know, jobs are changing, right? And they're going to continue to change. We won't have any more, like, our kids or our grandkids. They will have so many different jobs. They will have to reinvent their job, you know, much more often than what our fathers or mothers did, stay with the same job for a long time. So that's another. For me, just like, you know, thinking about also how many problems we have in the world. I think we have, first of all, made a lot of progress in the world. You know, I was watching actually philosopher Steven Pinker talking about how much better a lot of, like, in the world, like, you know, the society has developed. So keeping also that positive outlook, it's part, is a component of creativity, right? And then continue to move. We do have a lot of other problems, you know, we have new problems, new challenges, right, in our society, of all, in our world, in nature, of all kind. I just think that for me, the most important thing of creativity is to keep that open mind, keep the ability to accept and talk to the other people. If we live in the United States in a very polarized society right now, in terms of, from a political and social standpoint. So what I believe is that creativity, real creativity, is this ability to open up, to accept, to include, to integrate, right? And then try together, collaboratively, to solve things that individually we cannot solve. I really believe that the future creativity is connected to a collectivism in a certain way, that we need to know more different, diverse and different brains and hearts and soul can do more together right, than just the individual, the genius, the great talent. So I believe that that's where we need to move forward more as a society, collectively, collaborating, co-creating, and being open with our mind and with our heart to accept the diverse perspective, even if sometimes it's not yours, right? Even if sometimes it is difficult. Just pay a little bit of more listening to, is there anything interesting there? Even if it's, and then try to bring this together. That's what I believe we need to go.
Right. It's like, as you said earlier, it's about creativity. There needs to be an element of usefulness. And so if we're looking for what is useful in this collaboration, in these diverse views, what is useful, what is relevant, what is appropriate, what is beneficial.
Absolutely. And what is the impact? At the end of the day, what I believe is that creativity is great to have nurture creativity in kids, nurture creativity, like, you know, in children. I believe, for example, in a different school, you know, education system for children that nurture creative thinking skills. And at the end, the point is, are we having an impact? And the impact can be even small. It starts small. I do believe in ripple effects, right? And the fact that in tipping points in a certain way, you know, in which you can start. If we look at all these gigantic problems in our lives, right? How do we make this more like relevant for us and say, what can I do? Where and how can I have an impact using the power of my creative thinking and working collaboratively with others to just, can I reduce my footprint of a small thing, right? Just applying creative thinking in my life and with my family, with my community, with my friends, and so on. So I really believe in this ripple effect and this power of, and I am, no matter what, and that's what creativity has changed my life when I started really entering this field over, like, you know, 20, 25 years ago. Creativity has made me a very much more positive person, open-minded and positive, and that is something that is priceless in one personal life, to really look forward and say, you know, there is a lot of things that we can do, and there is no purpose in complaining or being cynical or saying we have a lot of things in the power of our minds and our hands, and I think we can do it.